In this video, I'll deal with different methods to achieve precision while creating drawings. To start with, we will see how snap and grid can be effectively combined to perform precision drafting. I would like to create a front elevation of this angle bracket. When you look at the dimensions, you can see that and most of the values are multiples of 15. I am going to make use of the snap and grid mode to create the front elevation. Though this method is not very commonly used, I would like to just give an idea about this concept. So I'll right click and go to grid settings and I'll change the values of snap and grid spacing to 15. When you change the value in the X direction, the value in the Y direction will also get changed. And just give OK. Now I'll go to line command and I'll plot this 60, then 45, then 15, 30, all the way up till this point and close it. I'll go to line command. I'll start from this point. 1, 2, 3, 4. That means it's 60. My cursor has snapped at an increment of 15 4 times. So I have plotted 60 units. Similarly, 1, 2, 3, it's 45, then 15. This is 30 and you can come all the way up till this point and you can come back to this point. Just give an enter, then give one more line command. You can draw a line connecting this endpoint and this endpoint. This is how the front view of this figure will appear. In a way, this method is easy, but since you are already familiar with better methods, you can stick to those methods. I'll turn off the grid as well as the OSnap buttons at the status bar. Next, I'll introduce you to the concept of object snapping or OSnap in Autocad. I'll start with a line by picking 2 points. I would like to draw another line from the end point of this line. So I'll just give enter to repeat the line command and I'll just pick a point here, pick the next point here. When you look at this intersection, you might feel that it is perfectly accurate. But according to AutoCAD, this is wrong. Just zoom in this area and find out yourself. This is the inaccuracy. From this, it's clear that picking a point in AutoCAD using the mouse is not recommended. I'll erase this line. So how will you pick this endpoint? See, in AutoCAD, we have already discussed the methods to define new points, like absolute or relative polar coordinates in the last tutorial. But if you want to pick precise or qualified points on existing objects, you should always make use of object snapping or OSnap. So what is OSnap? So OSnap is a method in AutoCAD using which you pick qualified points on objects. What is meant by qualified points? I'll draw a circle here with center radius method, then give enter, one more circle here. Qualified points are those points which are unique points. Take a line for example. How many qualified points can you show me in a line? A line has got a start point, end point and a midpoint. You cannot find 2 midpoints because it's a unique point. Same is the case with start and end points. If you take a circle, how many qualified points can you show me in a circle? A circle has got a center point and 4 quadrants. You have a 0th quadrant point, 90th, 180th and 270th quadrant points. Let me draw an arc using the 3-point method and I'll try to locate the qualified points in it. When you click here, you can see that it has got a start point, end point, midpoint and a center point. A circle do not have a midpoint, but an arc has got a midpoint. Likewise, the qualified points varies from object to object. Whenever you want to snap onto these points, you should always make use of object snapping. OSnap works in 3 different modes. One is called normal mode, then we have running mode and override mode. Let's explore these 3 modes in detail. So what is normal mode? Make sure that OSnap button is off. Now I would like to draw a line exactly from the endpoint of this line. So what I'll do is hold down the shift key of the keyboard and click the right button of the mouse to get this particular button menu. And in here you can see the list of all those qualified points. Suppose if you want to take an endpoint, just click on endpoint. You will get a square symbol indicating that it's an endpoint. You will also get a tooltip to confirm it. I'll just escape to cancel. I repeat the line command, shift right click, and I'll select endpoint. And you don't have to precisely place it on this endpoint, but you can keep anywhere near this endpoint. But if you keep your cursor here, this particular endpoint is identified. But if you keep it here, the other endpoint is identified. Depending upon the location of the cursor, that corresponding endpoint is identified. Now I'll just click a point here. Now I would like to draw a tangent to the circle. So shift right click, you can take tangent, and I'll keep the cursor on the periphery of the circle, and it has got the tangent. You can also access the OSNAP in normal mode by inputting the first 3 letters using the keyboard. Suppose if you want to draw a line to the center of the circle, you can type CEN for center. Now it has got the center point. Suppose if you want to draw a line to the midpoint of this arc, you can type MID. And if the dynamic mode is on, this will appear at the cursor location, and you can type MID. Now it has identified the mid. I'll turn off the dynamic mode, and this is called the normal mode of object snapping. So in this mode, whenever you want to pick a point, just shift right click and you can select the desired qualified point from here. But this will become inconvenient whenever you want to pick a particular point repetitively. For example, the end point, midpoint and center points you may have to use several times in a drawing. So such items can be permanently attached to the cursor by activating those items here. I'll activate endpoint, midpoint, center point and all those frequently used items. This can be activated either by clicking on this arrow, or you can just right click over here, go to object snap settings, and you will get drafting settings dialog. Here you can activate those frequently used items and just give OK. Now just enable or activate the OSNAP button. This can also be activated using the F3 function key. Suppose if I want to draw another line from the endpoint of this line, it will automatically go and cast that endpoint. You can draw with the center to the center, and when I take the cursor here, this particular point satisfies 3 conditions. There is a center, it is an endpoint as well as an intersection. In such a situation, software takes the best decision. Hence, in running mode, you activate all those items which are frequently used in the OSNAP menu, and once those items are activated, those items will get permanently attached to the cursor, and whenever you want, you will be able to make use of those items. Now let's see the override mode. In override mode, you temporarily override a running mode to use most infrequently used items in OSNAP. I'll demonstrate it with an example. In OSNAP, we have an item called nearest. So the nearest option, when activated, it will take a closest point, not the qualified point. That means if I take the cursor onto this arc, it will snap onto the nearest point. I can snap onto this point, or I can snap onto this point. If I want to catch on to this endpoint, then only if my cursor is precisely at this endpoint, I'll get it. But the moment I move away from the endpoint, the nearest option takes precedence. Suppose if I want to snap onto the quadrant point here, I'll activate quadrant. Only if my cursor is exactly on the top of a quadrant, it will identify it. The moment you move away from the quadrant, the nearest will take precedence. From this, it's clear that the nearest snap should not be used as running mode. The solution is to use nearest snap in override mode, which is obtained by shift right clicking the mouse and choose nearest. Alternatively, you can also type NEA for nearest. Now I have only the nearest OSNAP item attached to the cursor. The rest of the items are disabled. No endpoint, no midpoint, nothing. Suppose I want to draw a line to a nearest point here. Just make a click here. Now the nearest is used. That means you are temporarily overriding the existing running OSNAP. Once the override mode is used, you will come back to the running mode. Now I am back to my running mode. You can also access the override mode by right clicking, and here you have a snap override. For example, I need perpendicular. Perpendicular is not permanently attached. I need perpendicular and I want to draw a perpendicular to this line. So you can take the cursor onto this line and make a click. Now it's a perfect perpendicular to this line. So that's all about override mode. So just to refresh, how will you access the override mode? When you are in the running mode, when you have a number of items which are permanently attached to the cursor, and if you want to use an item which is not frequently used, All you have to do is hold down the shift key and the right button of the mouse to get this button menu, and you can access any desired item from here on the top of a running mode. Once you take an item, your cursor will have only that particular item attached. And once you use an override mode, you will come back to the running mode. And there is also another method to use it. Simply right click the mouse and you will get OSNAP overrides and you get the same items from this menu. Now let's quickly go through all the items in the OSNAP menu. You are already familiar with endpoint, midpoint and center. Center is normally used to snap onto the center point of a circle, arc or ellipse. But what about geometric center? This is a new feature which is introduced in 2016 version of Autocad. I'll demonstrate it. Let me create a rectangle using the rectangle command in the draw panel, and I'll click the first corner and the opposite corner to define it. Now I would like to construct a circle right at the geometrical center of this rectangle. Without drawing construction lines, if you want to do it, we used to make use of some other methods in the previous releases of Autocad. But now we have geometric center. So I'll click on the circle command and take center radius option. The moment you bring the cursor onto the rectangle, the geometric center is identified. This particular symbol represents the geometric center. Just click there, the center is identified and you can drag to specify radius. The same option can be used to get the geometric center, which we call as a centroid of any irregular shape. There is a command called polyline in Autocad. We'll discuss about this command in detail in some other video. I'll pick a number of points to create this polyline. So the polyline can also be made up of arc segments. So right click and go to arc option, make an arc, then one more arc here, then I'll come back to line, then I'll connect with this. Suppose I want to get the geometric center of this particular irregular shape and I want to plot a point there. So you can go to draw panel and you have an option called multiple points, which is nothing but the point object which you have learned in the last video. So click on the point and just make a click there. Just give an enter to go out of this command. And you can go to DDP type and change the point display type. I'll give this particular representation for the point. Now you have plotted a point. The next option is the node option. When the node is active, you will be able to snap onto a point object, which is plotted either by using the point command or obtained through some other commands, which we'll see later. Now I would like to draw a line from the node. So even if the geometric center is turned off, you can exactly snap onto this node. Now the node is working. Click on it and I'll connect it with the center. Next we will see the extension snap. So I'll activate the extension snap. I'll erase this object. I'll draw a line from here. I'll activate the ortho and pick the endpoint here. Then I'll draw an arc, a 3-point arc, 1, 2, 3. I'll give line command again and I'll keep the cursor onto this endpoint. When I move the mouse, you are moving along the extension of that line. This will eliminate the requirement of drawing construction lines. And if you pick a point, you will be picking exactly on the extension of this line. And you can also try it on the arc. When you keep the cursor on this arc, when you move the cursor, you can see that you are moving along the extension of that arc. I'll keep the cursor over here. You should not pick, but instead just bring the cursor onto this endpoint and move the mouse. You will also get the point of intersection. This is actually the intersection of these two objects when produced. So that is the main advantage of using the extension snap. The insertion snap will let you precisely snap onto the insertion point of a block. When we discuss about the concept of blocks, we will cover this part. Then the perpendicular we have already seen, tangent we have discussed, nearest was also covered. Then apparent intersection is basically used to get the intersection of two objects which are in two planes in 3 dimension. So this apparent intersection has got application only in 3 dimension. And parallel is basically used to create parallel lines with respect to a point. To create parallel lines in Autocad, we make use of a command called offset. So this particular snap item is very rarely used. So that's all about the OSNAP. And one very important point to be memorized is you are supposed to use an OSNAP item only when you are asked for a point. In the next video, we will continue with the same topic of various methods to achieve precision in Autocad software. There we will see the concept of user coordinate system, tracking, point filters and some more options in the OSNAP menu.